Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and today I know it's been a while. I got a log jam of work I had to do, so I tried to do as much as I could to keep me going, keep the show channel going while I was busy. But of course, even in that case, I ran out. So I wanted to give you guys something different, something I've been thinking about doing for a while. And look at this. There it is. This is Creed 3, right? Creed 3. Now, I saw Creed 3. I'm not, nobody really jumps at our movie reviews. We've been doing them for a while. We give our angle and our sort of personality to this. So I thought I would go one step further, right? So today I am going to do what I would call a page one rewrite. Now, this is a fine movie, right? Sylvester Stallone said that this was not more of a Rocky, this is more of a family thing. But this is inverted. This movie inverted the Rocky dynamic, right? Because the Rocky dynamic is having, the underdog sort of go into the fight with the professionals and become something. And this one has a new underdog coming in, and he is the semi villain of the story, but a person with a kind of hard luck type of thing, which is in his friend Dame Anderson, right? So they were buddies as kids, and Dame was already a boxer, Diamond Dame. We also had Creed, who was his boy, even though in a show they set up that Creed had Adonis in his house, had a room for him, all this stuff. They talk about the other kids that Apollo had, so they're not forgotten. Or they finally decide to say something about that, right? So, so we get this history of Adonis, this dark part of his being that kind of drove him to be the person that we saw, and um, what is it? Sorry, Dame comes out and he reconnects with Adonis, and Adonis is trying to bring him up slowly, but he's like, this is a Rocky film. Why can't Underdale get a shot? Now, there's another true thing outside of the Rocky dynamic. A lot of the bums that fight from time to time are people that, hey, we need to set up a fight, and who do we got? A sparring partner or this? They'll try to sell it as much as they can, and that's how the original Rocky idea came. So a local guy got a shot, and that's what happened. Sometimes, usually the underdog is someone who's been fighting for years, but sometimes they try to put together a fight. So because person has to get in there and fight, and people want to see it or they forget them, right? So it's a well done movie. It's the I mean, it's kind of hard to go and say direction, but having this sort of dynamic, I thought we could shift the story. So if you know the story, you can understand where these are going. If you don't know the story, it'd be easier to do page one things if I do a story that's old that I would love to to rewrite, right? Like I'm a script doctor, like the great Robert Town or the great Christopher McQuarrie. But what I think was interesting is that what if that dynamic is different with this guy with all this pain and whatnot? I got two angles for this because with these boxing movies, I started to realize since they pick and choose things from mostly Ali, like why don't they pick and choose stuff from like um who is it? Like from Sugar Ray Leonard, right? Because that's a dynamic career. And you have more, but the other thing is like there's so many fights that led to other things. You have with the large number of fights he had, you have at least, you take a fight, a film, or like an adversary, a film, that's like 8 films, right? So you could do, and they all have a different story. They all had their own dynamic, right? So that's one of the things that I think you could play with in this thing, right? Because Adonis is bringing this kid up. So we keep the same story. This guy comes in, wants a shot. They use all that stuff is fine, right? But obviously, in this title shot, they kind of progress Adonis saying he's retiring. So Rocky didn't sort of retire until his after his third fight or something like that. So third movie rather, sorry, but he had a ton of fights. So this movie dynamic of him retiring at the beginning of it, I really wasn't with, but whatever it is to get them going in the story, right? So my idea in this thing is that once this fight happens, and we know that Adonis has to fight, but how does Adonis get an edge over this person who has an edge on him? That's the whole point of the story. This person knows him. He can pull him back to being a kid, and then this guy can have this edge on him. How would Adonis, instead of what happens in the movie, he meets Stephen A. You already know that's wrong. It shouldn't happen. So what if we do a Sugar Ray Leonard moment, right? We gotta have the Ali, and that's the hard thing about boxing, because at points Ali was the bad guy. He was the one who was talking smack, even though he backed it up. He would say anything and do everything, and we of course know the stuff that he said to Frazier that kind of stuck to America and says, "Oh, look how terrible he talked to him." But he talked terrible about everyone. And if he wasn't calling Frazier one thing, he was calling someone else a bear and this, that, and the other. So I would love if that aspect came out of this. So I'm saying, hey, Diamond Dame is a champion. We have, of course, Creed who wants to come back, and Reed is like Creed should come in. They should have done a whole, instead of the montage sequence of the just boxing, have a montage sequence where you have, Dane coming up in the ranks, having all these tough fights and whatnot, and we have, while he's training, he's taking on other fights, he's doing other things. He's like, he acts like he's gonna retire, and Dame is like, this is it, this is what I've been wanting, and then he tricks him and doesn't do it, even though he's training all this time and that sort of thing. So bring out that aspect of what Apollo Creed was. And that's the thing that's been missing in this series, is an Apollo Creed that was a showman. And that's what he wasn't totally Ali, but he was a very confident showman. He was a person, that's why he has the American flag thing. He does a song and dance. He is a showman, and Adonis doesn't have any of that part in him. So it would be interesting to kind of play that out. So, that's what I was thinking in the movie. But then I had another plot. My second plot, which I would give to the studio and say, this is how I not fix. This is how I rewrite your movie, right? So we play the movie out exactly how it is, right? Come to the point, the whole setup, which I told you, and they fight, right? But then at the part where they go into the ring, Donnie's fighter, who's put in the hospital, was like, I don't understand why you're taking this fight. And he's like, what? He's like, Dame challenged me. He said, yeah, that's one thing, but this is my comeback. This is not your comeback. I should be coming back. He stopped me. This was unexpected, and now I can prepare. And he's like, no, this whole part between his actual fighter and it's like Don King, it's like, no, or Bernard Hopkins kind of superseding one of his fighters to fight this guy who's the new challenger, and it's like, you want the fame, you could just retire, right? And then they're like he's like, no. Next thing you know, of course, Adonis wins, but then you find out this was all his plan to get in. Adonis's plan. He was the one who wants to get back in the ring. He's always wanted, and he sees this as a way to get back in the ring, right? Because instead of having him immediately go back, it'd be having a reason for it, right? Kind of having him like saying, this works out perfectly, and then I take down Donnie, and then I'm even more loved, right? And I set it up with my own people, and the money I'm getting for this is like, and then we have like what's that thing? They have the moment at the end, which is like, what's that thing? Like The Usual Suspects, where we flash back to all the bits And then you see his other fighter just like, I think Donnie got me. I think Donnie got me. I think how did he set me up like I'm a tomato, and then so you'd have this other fighter have more of a part than sitting there so he'd be you don't forget about him, right? So understanding these rewrites, I haven't added Rocky in there. I do feel Rocky Sylvester Stallone should have figured a way in there, but the problem is, as far as script, he probably would have just been. The thing of it is, oh, I should have called this. I should have called this out. This is my last bit. I'm making this up as I go along, right? So let's see. I want to figure this out. Oh man, sorry guys. I have to do this. I have to find this guy out. This is from Rocky Balboa. Now, I don't have the picture. I don't know. I'll put this up here like this. Duke. Duke is the man who basically Duke Evers, Tony Duke Evers, who's actually Anthony LeBron Burton. This is possibly one of the greatest actors ever, right? And I know he wasn't in anything, but he was in, I think, every Rocky movie. Possibly, was he? Oh, yeah, he was in three too. He was in three also. This is the heart. You'd say it's Adrian, and Adrian is the heart of it, and like arts and science, like the heart, and then the mind, like the actual science of it. The science is Duke, right? The science of it of the Rocky movies is Duke. And you say he's only in there for 2 seconds every movie, right? Right. He's totally only in there for 2 seconds, and he makes each movie, right? So except for the second one, because the second one is nutty because Apollo's demolishing people, and he still is tied with them. So it's kind of a that's more of a feel good Rocky. But Rocky One, Apollo is not into it. He's not training. He's not spending any time. He's saying this guy's a tomato. I'm not wasting my time. His trainer is watching, and he's like, this guy, there's something, this might be a fight here. And then he sees him punching the what's name, and it's like, he's like watching the TV, watching Rocky hit the meat, and he's like, ah, and he's like, he's selling you that this guy has power, and then he has some other things going for him that might work into this fight that work against Apollo, especially if Apollo isn't training, right? So then, of course, he helps train in three, I believe he's in there. But then four, he's just a trainer. He's Rocky's trainer. And then I always go to Rocky Balboa. That one where it's really not a great movie, but when he comes on screen, you're back in the movie. He's like, we are for blunt force trauma, like it's something that his ancestors, like those, he needs. I think Sylvester Stallone, if he was in this, and because he's a part of the humor, he could fill the Evers void. And if the writers are worth their salt, so it is kind of connected to rework Stallone into the movie and having him call out some of these things. It's like, Donnie, this guy's me. This guy's me. He wants a chance. He won it, but he's me. Like you're me, he's me. That's the same thing. We're the same people. That's the thing. But then you got to get the humor. You got to get that because then obviously Rocky's going to be training Adonis again. How do you how do you figure that out? Because they already went to all regions of the earth to learn how to fight. What do you add to this one? What would Rocky add to this one? And you could have, I mean, it's a struggle because I struggle with Rocky 3, but the Karate Kid 3, but the ending was so strong. You can have a point where um, Rocky and Adonis aren't seeing eye to eye. You could play this up. So ultimately, I think you would enjoy the movie. I just watched these movies, and I always think of Red Bell. If you ever seen that, they took all the fight cliches and they turned them. They turned every one of them everything you think is going to happen one way, they did it another way, and they found cool ways to do the same things with a different result. So that's what I'm giving you. I'm saying going out, even though Rocky, what's the name? Creed 3 is the what is it? Is the Top Gun, the original Top Gun of boxing films. Yeah, like these guys are no, they have actual fighters that aren't what's the thing? What's the guy? They're not like Evander Holyfield size boxers. They have regular size boxers with regular builds. But then these guys are just like the Top Gun guys of boxing. And of course, the rivalry kind of has that kind of original Top Gun feel. The first one, the most recent one, doesn't really play up that sort of rivalry, that sort of a legacy thing in that one. So that's it. Those are my 3 points that I have. Just to, not to say to fix the movie, just to say how to have fun with this sort of genre and say what else could we do? We could have um, Adonis being more of a showman and building up to the next fight by getting on Dame's nerves, or we have it where Adonis is always planning to get back in, and he sees this Dame guy as someone that would be perfect to kind of take out his fighter and build up his return, right? And then third part, maybe add in a Rocky in this rewrite and have try to figure out what new angles, because you've already had him take them all ends of the earth. You can't do that. But it would be nice to see Rocky be able to see that, hey, this Dane guy, that's me. I hit the wrong side. You hit everyone. We're all three the same people. So let's figure this out. And let's figure, that sort of thing. So it could be fun. That's it. I think I'm gonna do more, but most of the time I've had to but to actually do it, it would be really fun to do. But ultimately, you could be in a situation when you do your page one rewrites and you're battling Christopher McQuarrie for the Top Gun movie, where you're not Top Gun, sorry, when you're doing the Mission Impossible, the fourth one, right? And you got Chris McQuarrie writing the script, and you got David Lindelof writing the script, right? And Chris McQuarrie is dialed in to what Tom Cruise wants, and Damian Lindelof, he's stuck with the studio saying, we want this sort of rewrite. Can you do this? So what's the name? They're already going this way, but the studio wants this, and what's the name going to get money, but it's not going to pay dividends afterwards where the movie comes out. So it's kind of struggle, but in these rewrites, you can arbitrate and say, hey, they had me in here, I wrote some things, and some of it might have been used. So just some of my nutty ideas to add to this story, to make some different changes and whatnot. But anyway, that's it. I've been wanting to do something like this for a while, and watching Creed 3, I thought of it, right? And a side note, my wife was thinking about, what was she saying? She thinking about Creed 4, where the daughter is fighting. So I said I would only work with that. So I'll give you the fourth one, the sequel, where the daughter fights, but I want her to be Layla Ali. I want her to have the whole a-hole aspect, where overconfident and that sort of thing. That would be the fun thing. But there's no arc in the story outside of the struggle with hearing and that. But I guess you can figure it out, because I don't want to do what we've seen in Million Dollar Baby. So anyway, that's about it. I had fun. Spinner Rack out.